Hello and welcome to the Last Word on Spurs. We hope you're keeping very, very safe and well. Thank you so much for joining us as we look ahead and build up the Tottenham Hotspur in pre-season action. But can you believe it? 3rd of July, and Spurs did announce another signing before the end of June. So we're covering that as well during this special show. 4 signings so far during this summer transfer window, and I can't believe it. Yeah, 4. Unbelievable. 4 summer signings for Tottenham Hotspur, and hopefully still more to come from Paratici, Daniel Levy, and co. Lots going on at Tottenham right now, and we're delighted to bring you yet another Last Word on Spurs show. We've done finances on Tottenham. Obviously, we've done a lot on the transfer window. Tonight, we're looking towards more of the psychology, the build-up to pre-season. How much does that take out of the players, coaches? Well, we're here to cover all that on Last Word on Spurs. And tonight, I have back alongside me, as per usual, got my wonderful co-host in the house, the brilliant Lee McQueen on Last Word on Spurs. Lee, love you back on, mate. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks, mate. Really good to have you on. Excited about tonight to have H with us and maybe some other special guests dropping in throughout the evening. So that'll be really good. But yeah, look, I'm buzzing, mate, for the new season. Another signing in the bag, which is, unbelievable, really. I'm sure we're going to get into that. And also, I've got the Blue Book out tonight, boys, listeners, viewers. I've got some outrageous stats that I want to talk about with regards to 22-point swings, making all the right moves in the transfer window, and can Spurs actually challenge for the Premier League next season? We've got it all here, I'm telling you. And don't get carried away. I'm well carried away, mate. Don't worry about that.
All to come, all in the McQueen Blue Book. Don't go anywhere. You know what's coming. Now, I want to just firstly say we were expecting to have Dean Austin join us, of course, former Spurs player, coach as well. Now, many of you probably been watching it all day. Essentially, Dean has been at Silverstone watching the F1. And as you probably all guys saw, that horrendous incident earlier took up quite a large section of that day, about an hour delay on there. So, unfortunately, we haven't got Dean Austin joining us, but we have hopefully got another guest joining us very soon. But listen, this man needs no introduction. We've had him on Last Word on Spurs before, and delighted to say we've got him again. I think for this kind of show especially, delighted to have him on to delve into the fact of pre-season coaching, dealing with players, psychological pressure. We've got the brilliant co-founder of the Creative Talent Agency, professional football coach, Analyst, appeared on Sky Sports as well. We've got the wonderful Harry Brooks joining us. Harry, thank you so much for your time, my friend. How are you?
I'm really well, thanks, guys. That's a pretty good introduction. I think you should have just me walking around with you all day long just to cheer me up like that. I think that'd be pretty good. Yeah. Any meetings I have, just you introduce me, it'll be all right.
We were meant to have the fireworks behind us, we just couldn't afford it for this week, so please accept my apologies.
Exactly.
But we'll see what we can do. But we're delighted to have you join us. Thank you so much, H. And like I say, keep your eyes peeled. We may have another guest join us throughout this show, so keep your eyes peeled. We've got a wonderful show in store. But as always on Last Word on Spurs, pleased to say that we're absolutely delighted to be sponsored by the Beavertown Corner Pin. That is the Beavertown, bang opposite your South Stand at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. We have got some content, and I keep saying this, we have got some content planned to come across the summer, build up to pre-season, new season, so keep your eyes peeled for the Beavertown Corner Pin. They have actually got at the moment an exclusive special for you beautiful, lovely lot that I can see radiant with us tonight. And if you use that code TOP4, that's TOP4, all one word, all capitals, you can bag yourself 15% off all beer on their website for a limited time. I can tell you McQueen has tried the strong stuff. He's even tried the weak stuff. I mean, Lee, anything on the beer you want to give a mention to that we should be feasting our eyes upon?
Mate, the Gamma's always good. The old Gamma Ray. If you're going with a non-alcoholic, the Laser Crush is absolutely spot on. Beavertown have actually got a new range out at the moment, so they've got some lovely new haze, pale ale haze that have come out as well. Blood orange, pretty good. So yeah, I mean, just go and get involved. Like, just go and do some tasters because they're brilliant. You can get mail ordered to your front door as well. So down the Corner Pin is where it's at during the summer months. We're going to get a couple of live shows, hopefully cracking on. Don't want to give too much away. Rick will kill me. But keep your eyes peeled for that because it's going to be a bit of a sing-song. I'll just give you a little bit of heads up on that. So it should be a good one.
Absolutely, like I say, check them out, of course, and obviously that website, just again on that, www.beavertownbrewery.co.uk, you will find the description and everything in that on the link below once this show finishes. For our listeners on audio as well, that is too. Right, guys, Spurs completing their 4th signing of the summer, and that was in the back end of June. can't quite believe this window. I know Ali Gold said the other week, what has happened to Tottenham Hotspur? What is going on with Tottenham Hotspur? Absolutely incredible at the moment. Richarlison in a deal worth 60 million, signing a 5-year contract. Lee, first thoughts? A player that I think it was all starting to grow on us towards the end of last week. Thoughts on it being over the line, Lee? 4th summer signing for Tottenham.
I've got to admit, I mean, I when it first started rumblings about, I'm thinking, what's going on here? I mean, surely we need another striker. It's, a friend of the show, Chris Cowlin, runs his own show, obviously, as most will know, always says that, the last permanent striker that we signed was Fernando Llorente, 2017. We need another striker. We need another number 9 to come in and challenge Kane, not be a backup, to challenge. So I was a bit bemiffed when we were linked with Richarlison. I'm thinking he's not really he's not really a full-on number 9. He comes in from the left. He can, come in from the right. He plays across the front three. And then having a bit of a wild debate as we do on the WhatsApp group. And, maybe thinking, okay, but some of the lads are saying, look, no, it's a really good signing for us because he can play across the front three and he played in positions. I thought, all right, have a look. And it starts to grow on you, doesn't it? And grow on you and grow on you. And, then it starts getting talked up. And you start looking at his stats and you look at his, the way he plays, his shithousery as well, and you start thinking, hang on, actually, it could be a really good signing. By the time we end up signing, I'm getting carried away. I'm on the crazy train again, thinking results. So, I mean, all in all, I think it is a really good signing for us. Some people worry about the money. I don't know why. Ultimately, maybe it is our gate receipts that pay for the money. But I think the Guns N' Roses have just paid off of his fee anyway, isn't it? Over the last couple of days. But yeah, look, I mean, I think some people might worry about the money being 50 million with 60 million with add-ons, but I watched actually the Charlie Eccleshare show that you did in a week, Rick, and I just thought it was bang on. This is so unlike Tottenham to sign a player that you don't really, not you don't really need, but to sign a player to strengthen a position of strength. I think that is absolutely phenomenal, and that's what we've done. I mean, so much stuff on social media about Jesus versus Richarlison. It's a great signing for Arsenal, Jesus, and it's a great signing for Tottenham and Richarlison. They play in 2 different systems, 2 different needs at the time. And I just think it's a very, very good signing for Spurs. And one of the things that has impressed me the most about Richarlison, not only the shithouser Instagram post that I'm sure you've seen with him going up against Arsenal, all that sort of stuff already, but what's impressed me the most is the fact that he's come to that our football club, thinking, I'm going to get in the first 11. And that is exactly the mentality and exactly what we need. And us as Tottenham fans, we are very used to going, oh, well, he's not going to come and sit on the bench. Like, we can't have that person on the bench. And that is, changing of a mindset. And I tweeted earlier in the week, Conte is just literally ripping up the rule book when it comes to Tottenham and transforming our club. I know it's a team effort, but this guy walking into our football club is transforming it, absolutely transforming it. So I think all in all, a really good sign for us, and I'm buzzing. I'm very excited to see how that front 5, because I include Lucas Moura in that as well, not Bergwijn, because I think he's going to go, but if he doesn't, it'd be front 6, wouldn't it? But very excited to see how that front 5 interact, get into it, what teams he's going to play. It's going to be a hell of a lot of games, 5 substitutions. We've all talked about it before. So brilliant addition to the Conte evolution or revolution.
Yeah, how are we going to go with it? I mean, I say it is a really exciting time to be a Spurs fan. I think this summer, when I think about, the build up to a season, I can't remember one that is in such anticipation for what it is at the moment. There is such a thirst and a hunger to get ready for pre-season, get the boys back in training. Let's get to see as much as we can on pre-season. I mean, obviously Spurs have got it now released on Spurs Play, so we'll be able to watch across the pre-season. You can follow Last Word On Spurs, of course, for all the pre-season analysis for every single game. We'll be here and we'll give you all that analysis to every single game ahead of the big kickoff, of course, against Southampton to come on the opening day. I just want to get your thoughts on it because, Spurs initially, I understand, we offered 40 million in writing on the Wednesday. Then Everton chairman Bill Kenwright initially went away believing that offer was insufficient. Then later, Spurs did strike a deal. We understand it's going to be an initial 50 million with a further 10 million in add-ons as Richarlison completed his medical in Brazil. What do you make, H, for you of this signing for Tottenham?
I think it's the kind of signing that a club makes that's trying to push for big things, because it's very clear that obviously he's not been signed to usurp Kane and Son. He's been signed to challenge allow some element of rotation, and try to force his way into, that starting lineup. In terms of his output, I think he'll probably score maybe. It will improve a little bit compared to what it was to Everton because, even though he's going to be playing in a far better team that will provide more chances, he won't play as many minutes. So he's probably going to score between 10 to 14 Premier League goals next season. I would guess, which a lot of people might think that is a waste of money in terms of £60 million for a player that's going to give that, but that's not including that 10 to 14 goals is in addition to what the likes of Kane, Son, Kulusevski get. So I don't mean this in terms of player style, but it does remind me a lot of when Hotter went to Liverpool in the sense of, okay, it's a good, arguably very good, Premier League proven forward. The hardest thing to find in football is a consistent output in the forward line. Yeah. And okay, for those players, it's a premium price. Now, if, let's say, Son had been sold or Kane had been sold and Richarlison was, signed as the star man, then it would be a bit underwhelming. But because he's in addition to what is already there, I think it's an excellent signing. And, it's perhaps not the ones that YouTube fans or fans, get all excited about because it's not the Football Manager signing of, the wonder kid abroad or the fancy player in the European League. But there's a reason why, clubs go for Premier League proven talent. It's very difficult spending a lot of money on professional athletes. So you want as few tangibles to go your way as possible because it's such a huge risk, and Premier League proven is a huge one. So yeah, it's a very, very good signing. It's very predictable in terms of what you can probably see. He probably won't be a superstar, but he's unlikely to flop. He'll probably do what I said. I would say 10 to 14 league goals, maybe a couple more in cup competitions. Healthy rotation, healthy option, push for starting lineups regular. I think you'd probably take that as a forward option, I'd imagine.
Harry, just interjecting there. He has the confidence, the aura about him that he's going to come in and go, I'm having that. And I like that about that as well. I think Conte would like that in his team. I also think as well, I mean, we had, everybody that watches and listens to the show knows that I absolutely adore Gareth Bale. And yes, that ship is completely sailed, so I'm not going to go on about it. But actually, when he did come back, he scored 17 goals and 11 Premier League goals, and we didn't replace that the season after. So at the very least, Richarlison probably comes in and replaces them 11 Premier League goals, right? Like you're saying, 12, 14 goals that he gets. And that's really going to help us. We probably need, I think we scored 69 goals last season in the league. If we're going to have a real chance, a real challenge, or if we can even get up to challenge, we're going to need to stick another 20 on that. And he helps that, doesn't he? He helps, if you're going to get another 12, 14 out of him, then, that's only can be a positive.
And what I must say for me is, I think the sign of what you're seeing now with Conte in terms of trying to act like a big club is that when you sign a player in an area already of significant strength, you've got Kane, you've got Son, you've got Kulusevski, and you're going to add Richarlison to that. This is unlike Tottenham to sign a player in an area where they've already got, decent amount of quality. They're actually adding a player to an area where he's not necessarily going to start, but we've got enough games where if you look at the case, Spurs might be playing Bayern Munich on a Tuesday, then they've got to play City on a Saturday. There's no way you can keep the same 11 there for both of those games. You are going to have to rotate. I think the great thing about Richarlison, I've said it before about him, is that unlike Rafinha, who I know many were also sold upon, is that Richarlison offers you that role of not only being able to play as a lone forward, he can play across the front three. So if Spurs would have signed Rafinha, they would have had to go out again and still buy another striker. Where I think Richarlison, for the money, in a way, it kind of compensates the fact that he can play two positions. And I think when you look at down the years, what Spurs have tried to do in terms of signing an alternative number 9, we've seen Janssen, Vinicius come in, Llorente. None of these guys have, although Llorente scored a decent amount of goals, even with Soldado, they found it very hard playing as that second fiddle forward. We all thought Soldado would be the man, but they've all struggled. So I really think Richarlison, in a way that we know he's Premier League proven, he can hit the ground running. He has, like you said, Lee, that bit of devilment in him that I think Conte will absolutely adore. And I think when he's on your side, it's completely different to then when obviously it's against you. And I think we can really use that and tap into that psyche as well.
It's like when Delhi came, right? Everybody hated Delhi, apart from Spurs fans, obviously, that love Delhi. You know, it's probably the same for a lot of clubs, and I think he is that sort of player. I think the only negative that I would say on what you just said there, Rick, is that, you know, about the Janssens and the Soldados and the, you know, Llorentes and all that sort of stuff. Even Pochettino didn't play Llorente when he could have played him in the absence of Kane. And I think that is the only negative that I've got with Richarlison. Hopefully his attitude will change this, is that I still think Kane will play the matches, like, because he hasn't got, like, if we'd have signed Vlahovic, I battered his name, but if we'd have signed Vlahovic, Vlahovic, right, a season ago or whatever, a proper number 9 to challenge Kane, then that situation goes. But with Richarlison, you've always got the excuse to go, yeah, but he's not really a number 9, so we'll still play Kane. And that's the bit. But hopefully the games will work itself out between Son, Kane, and Richarlison. You know what? We play 60 games this year. I mean, that's 20 games each, even if you rotated them like in that way. So he's going to get a load of game time and hopefully give, like Harry, as you said, Kane and Son a rest, because they can't play all their matches. I know Kane turned up late last season, didn't he? But after that, I think he played every game. And Højbjerg, outstanding stat, by the way. I think since Højbjerg started signed for the club, he's only missed 2 Premier League games. So this bolstering out the squad is massively important, and we're going in the right direction for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I'm interested to get your thoughts on that, H. I mean, listen, he scored 10 goals, laid 5 assists on in 30 Premier League games, and overall 48 goals in 173 Premier League appearances for Watford and Everton, respectively. Is it a sign, H, of a big club mentality, that the fact that Spurs are signing a player already in an area where they have got significant amount of strength to some degree in terms of the starting 11? Because I think it's unlike Tottenham to be signing a player for the squad. If you see where I'm coming from, normally Spurs are going to try and sign players that kind of fit into that 11, whereas now we're going for a player that essentially is going to add some depth into an area that we're already fairly strong. We know we still need a left-sided centre-back to some degree. We know Lenglet looks like he's going to be coming in. But from that perspective, how impressed are you, H, by the way Spurs have operated for this particular move?
Yeah, like I said, for me, I think the signs are there that, I'm not saying it's going to happen, but the signs are there that they're not just trying to compete for top 4. They're trying to make sure that they, you can't make sure and guarantee you stay in the top 4, but it looks like they're going for the big trophies. That's why they're behaving like this. Whether it happens or not, that's another thing. I'm not saying it will or won't, but that's why they're doing it. You know, it's the kind of signing that if you want to be a champion, you have to make those kind of signings, players that come in to push the first 11, the ones that can refresh the first 11. You know, in football, you know, the level is so high. And the data and the, you know, the research going into opponents nowadays is so vast that if you don't freshen up, you know, teams can quite quickly get to know your style, and they're very good players themselves. So you've got to have that ability to change things and do different things, and, you know, keep players on their toes. You know, and obviously that's a challenge of being a top manager and being a top club. That how do you keep, you know, big names happy? Because, you know, Richarlison is Brazil's number 9. You know, aiming to be the number 9 in the World Cup. If he doesn't make any start in the first 5 Premier League games, he's going to, you know, have questions. So the challenge of now being a big club is how you cope with being a big club. But yeah, of course, if you want to push on and you get to those levels where you can possibly challenge Man City or Liverpool, or if they have a drop off, be the next in line, then you have to take those, I guess, for want of a better word, gamble to, you know, be able to work with these bigger players. Otherwise, you'll always be the team that at best can fight for the top 4. So it shows they're trying to do something. Whether it happens or not, we'll see. But yeah, it's a signing of intent.
Yeah, and as we know that, obviously, of course, it now means it's Spurs' 4th summer signing. He goes along with Fraser Forster, Ivan Perisic, Yves Bissouma, and we understand Spurs are also closing in on a loan deal for Clement Lenglet. Now, again, a lot has been made of this potential signing. What we understand, it will be a loan with potentially an option to buy in there. I mean, he is a left-sided centre-back. He's probably not of everybody's first choice. I think we all got very excited at the start of the window by potentially the thought of, obviously, Bastoni coming here. I think, again, we've got that situation where quite clearly the player wants to stay there. We have to see where the rest of that window ends up. Just to stick with you on that, H, what's your thoughts on this left-sided centre-back area for Tottenham? Anything you can tell us on Lenglet and their pursuit of him so far?
He's a good player, but if I'm being honest, I think it's a damning indictment that there is such a lack of centre-backs comfortable playing on the left-hand side that you're sort of reaching around and looking for options. A club like Tottenham, who are arguably, top 10 biggest clubs in the world, or top 10 most attractive clubs in the world when you take into account the Premier League and the financial power that they have now, that they're sort of like scraping around looking for someone like Longley, who is a good player, but has had a couple of years that it's been very underwhelming. Of course, there's different reasons to that. He's a good player. He's good on the ball. He can carry it. He can show a variety of passing, break lines, hit diagonals. He's cultured, but there are just occasions where he just, for me, has a bit of a meltdown in terms of decision making. Now, maybe that's because he's in a bad situation and something Conte believes he can get out of him or get him back to the Sevilla form. And if he can, then great. You've got a great option there. And it kind of makes sense again to give another option. And also, if it's a situation where Spurs believe that perhaps a Bastoni or a Gvardiol are available next summer and you have like a stopgap, or he does really well and you decide he could be the one. So it's not a bad signing by any means. He's a good player. And I think actually, I think this back three of Davis, Dyer and Romero is actually a really good back three. I think Davis gets forgotten about as a left-sided centre-back in a back three. I think he's excellent. I think he was excellent. Actually, I'd go to far say he was in the top 5 Spurs players of last year when Conte joined. I think he was superb. He seems to have, whether that's Conte or just himself or experience, but he seems to have become a lot more tenacious, which is fantastic. I don't just mean defending, I mean on the ball as well, showing that his ability to, play those passes. So I actually backed maybe Davis to stay ahead of Longley. But we'll see. It's not a bad signing at all. Obviously, it's not the Bastoni that people were hoping for. But it's a good option. It makes sense. It's a very smart signing because of the financial aspect of it and the fact that Spurs already have actually a pretty balanced back three.
I think we know, obviously, if there's that option to buy there, it will be for quite a nominal fee. And like you said there, H, obviously a player that, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think he was nominated for that Golden Boy Award quite a number of years ago. So he has had quite at the very start of his career, obviously thought very, very highly. You don't get a move to Barcelona if you're not thought of very, very highly. I think, Lee, from your perspective, we've had some conversations internally about this where I know you wasn't massively impressed that we're going for a player that's already turned us down once. Essentially. But again, we have to remember Spurs weren't in the Champions League this time 12 months ago. Lee, is it a sign that will warm to you, given the fact, the players, from what I understand, reportedly, is going to take a pay cut? Conte has convinced him to come. It's a World Cup year. Therefore, he must believe he can get something out the player, like Harry just alluded to there.
Well, I think Harry is spot on in terms of ability. I actually think he's going to be more of the Dyer understudy who can also cover for Davis. And I agree. I think Davis, Dyer and Romero were outstanding. We conceded 40 Premier League goals last year, which was the 4th lowest Premier League goals conceded. You expect us to finish top 4. It was the 4th. It was the 4th lowest conceded. So I think that him coming there, he's a ball player. Some of the stuff, as Harry just said, being able to drop balls in behind for the likes of Son, racing onto Richarlison now for the likes of Kulusevski could be fantastic. I think he can also fill in for Davis. Davis ain't going to be able to play every game. But I also agree with Harry about Davis. I tweeted this out in a week. If Davis is our main starting left side centre back next season, I'm all in, because I think he was absolutely magnificent under Conte last year. But I am the first to say we need an elite signing at left centre back. So I don't want to contradict what I've been saying on the shows, because I still think Bastoni, Gvardiol, again, the two players, Harry, that changes us into an absolute beast of a team. Knowing that you've got Davis, Bastoni, Dyer, Lenglet, Romero, and I don't know, say Sanchez or Tanganga, whatever way you want to look at that side. I mean, that is some serious competition for places. And for me, the reason why I was a bit worried about Lenglet is because he did turn us down last season. There was reports this season that he doesn't want to come either, and he's needed convincing. And that you might say that with most players. I mean, it's a psychological thing. But, the line of work like me and my technology business is all about behaviours and attitude and measuring people in that way. And I just think that you have to want people to want to come. People want to come and be part of this, because Otherwise, you get sulkers. Yeah. The attitude, behavioural bit for me is massively important. Look at Tunga and Dembele. Right? Look at Paul Pogba at Manchester United. We don't know what goes on all behind the scenes in all these players, but what it looks like is that they don't want to be at their respective clubs. And keeping players or finding players or bringing players in that don't want to be there in any walk of life, bringing staff in, whatever it is, it never works out. So that was my worry. I'll be honest with you, since I read reports from very, very credible journalists, I think it was from Charlie again, Eccleshare, and a couple of things he'd done in the Athletic, Ali Gold, saying that Conte's personally had some conversations with Lenglet and that type of stuff, then it probably means that maybe he did need convincing, and he's seen the light and he wants to join. And as Harry said, look, he's coming on loan, so it's a little bit of a low risk for us, isn't it? Because if it doesn't work out, it just goes back. Like Galini has done, like Vinicius has done. Do you know what I mean? Like Jedson Fernandez has done. So maybe it is a good one for the club. But look, I mean, I've seen a lot of his YouTube videos. Don't know much about him other than YouTube videos, and Harry's just talked him up in terms of passing ability as well. It's got to be a good option for us because, again, Conte wants to have players like for each position, and it's a massive 60 games hopefully next season at least. 5 substitutions as well. We've talked about that in the striker department. Why not in the defender department? And at the moment, the only ball player, even Romero, struggled when he plays in the centre. We know Sanchez struggled when he's played in the centre, and because the CCB or the centre back is the person that's going to be your ball passer. And Dyer's learnt that from an Alderweireld type scenario, if you're with me still. And I think with Lenglet coming in, that's why he can almost sit there like a QB and spray passes. And I think that's why I think he'll probably be used more in that centre-back role than he might be on the left centre-back, depending if my dream signing does happen from like a Bastoni or a Guardiola. Yeah. But, we'll have to see what happens. But I think it's a good option for us, to be fair.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like by all accounts that Spurs obviously still want to sign. The huge chunk of their money seems like it does predominantly want to go on still a left-sided centre-back. So maybe Spurs are just covering their tracks that if they are going to struggle, because we know Conte does want to bring in players now that he can start with in pre-season. That's the key, isn't it?
List, isn't it, Rick and Harry? That list, they kept everybody, all the top journos been saying that list. They've always had a centre-back and a left-sided centre-back. So if you're looking at that and still looking at that list, he could be the left-sided centre-back and we might get a Bremer in. Or he could be, it might be genius because he could cover both them positions and then still go and get somebody else in. So it could be even stronger.
No, very true. Very quickly, Raj on the screen that says Richarlison Andre is an anagram of I'd can horrid Arsenal. It's written in the stars. I love that. Very quickly, we must also mention about Jed Spence because, again, for anyone that's been following Last Word on Spurs over the course of the last 3 or 4 weeks, we're lucky to be joined by a whole host of real top-tier journalists that have given us their opinion on Jed Spence. And it has gone just a little bit quiet in the last few weeks. I mean, Harry, what's your take on the Jed Spence situation? It appears that it seems to be coming down to really just getting those figures right for both parties. I mean, the fact of the matter is that I think Borough have got themselves a decent replacement or a decent alternative there in Isaiah Jones, who's been playing quite regularly for them. And obviously for Spence, it seems that there's a willingness for him to come to Tottenham. Is it just about now getting down to formalising that fee?
Yeah, I presume so. Gibson is pretty hard chairman to work with at the best of times for a lot of clubs. Spurs hold all the cards in a sense because Borough do have a right back, Isaiah Jones, who they rate highly and that plays all their games. Spence, they know that he's not going to stay. At the moment, there aren't any other clubs in for him. Nottingham Forest, I think, even announced it recently that they've signed another right back. So at the moment, Spurs hold all the cards. The pressure's on Borough, and Spurs probably know that. And it probably is a couple of £1 million. He's a very good player in the sense of he has a lot of things I like about him. Very creative dribbler, good ball carrier, plays with a lot of risk, which I like from players. I have an issue with his end product. I think that he has, I'm going to sound like a coach's nerd here, but quite often in the final third, he can sort of like overrun instead of the ball. So he can sort of push ahead of the ball. And then all of a sudden, he's sort of crossing the ball when it's stuck under his feet. He runs too far ahead of it. And that is something that, that lack of sort of quality on his final pass at times is something that would only be, shown up even more in the Premier League. Now, if I trusted Spurs or him to work on that and to nail that final ball, I'd say go and do it all day long, because if he can nail that, you've got a player that could become a world beater as a right wing back, because he has that unstoppable ability to just carry the ball outwards, inwards, with power, pace, creativity, good recovery tackle, young to develop. But obviously that final product is a huge thing. He's quite a good pass and mover, 1-2s. But yeah, if they worked on that end product, I'd say do it. Pay money, because could be a superstar. But quite often you see players at sort of like these ages, they very rarely improve things like technical practices and things like that. So it'd be down on the club and him to work on that. But if they do, then great. If not, then he's a good player, but maybe not the top tier of a right wing back that others could be.
Yeah, before I bring Lee in there, that comment on the screen here, Arsenal have folded, United and Chelsea are waiting on the river for a pair. Liverpool and City waiting to see what Spurs do. Conte going all in. Lee, thoughts on Jed Spence? I mean, are you still as keen as what you was? Because it just feels at the moment that maybe, when you look at the situation we're in, Spurs obviously hold a valuation, Borough obviously hold their valuation. And I think from a Tottenham perspective, we're always not going to want to overpay with a guy that hasn't had any Premier League experience. I'll be honest, in my opinion, I've said it before, in the times that I've watched him, and I'm going to be honest and say that I don't watch the Championship every single week, to me he looks quite a raw player that's going to need quite a bit of coaching. Now, my only concern about that is that we're in a Champions League season. I think everybody's expectation is to see Tottenham closer to Liverpool and City than what we was the season before. No, I'm not getting carried away saying we can win the league, but I think we all feel under Conte that anything is possible. So do you think we're as keen as on the move as what it was previously, or are we maybe dipping our toes to see the alternatives out there?
Yeah, so it's an interesting one. I wanted to actually ask Harry on the psychological side of transferring into a Premier League side with no Premier League experience, and actually, from a coaching perspective and also from a player's psychology, he comes across as a confident lad. So again, I think he's got that ability to say, no, I'm going to have a go. But I think the uniqueness about this transfer for me is that we've already had Atletico Madrid have a little sniff around Emerson Royale, and the word coming out of the club was, we ain't going anywhere. Conte's not having him go. And it might be just because on loan. But then we've also had Doherty, before he got injured, playing really, really well. Like, Jamie in our group was just stuck in like Conte ball, with Doherty at the heart of it, and it looks phenomenal. So you've got two, I'm not saying they're world-class options, right? So do not kill me at the moment, right, listeners and viewers. But what I'm saying is, from Conte's perspective, you've maybe got two players there that he can trust. And then you've got, as Harry just nailed, you've got a guy coming in. Yes, he's homegrown, so he's English quota and that HG quota that we're looking for. And yes, he's very exciting, but he's still got to improve a lot. Has he got the mentality to be able to step up like Dele Alli did, from the lower leagues and come and just explode onto the scene? Or, because that's going to take graft and work, and we know that Conte is going to do that with them. Or is the club sitting there thinking, well, look, it'd be a nice addition to our squad, and he's going to have to work really hard to get into the team, but actually I'm all right with what I've currently got at the moment. Like, we don't know. I mean, it does smell a little bit of old school Levy, like haggling over £1 million, or, the Jack Grealish deal, when we lost that and it was all agreed. And then like we squeezed him for £1 million and that changed around. But again, as Harry nailed it for me, like, he wants to come at Tottenham. Middlesbrough want to sell him. They've already got Jones, as you boys have both said, Zaya Jones there. It feels like to me in the background, it's kind of done. But it just needs to come over that line. My question actually to you, Harry, if you wouldn't mind, is has Jed got that mentality to be able to step up and because Conte's going to graft him, isn't he? If he's going to be the starting right wing back for Tottenham, as you said, he's going to have to work really, really hard, isn't he?
I don't know him personally. He seems to be a very confident lad, but obviously the step up to the Premier League is huge. And there are certain weaknesses that get harder to work on as you get older. So if I talk about the first thing in terms of the step up to the Premier League, in terms of the Championship, the speed is like marginally quicker. The quality is marginally better, but those margins are huge. So I use the example of Dwight Gale, for example. a very good footballer, a very good striker in the Championship, could score 20 goals a season. But for whatever reason, when he goes to the Premier League, when the game is just that much quicker, his brain can't work to the same level. So he just can't put up the same kind of numbers or performances. Yeah. So who's to say if Spence can do that? Like that's what I said earlier, buying professional athletes and paying good money for them is an incredibly hard and risky thing to do, which is why you want as many tangibles going your way as you can. Now, with regards to where Spence lacks, things like concentration and, positional discipline, they're pretty easy to fix at most ages. That would be pretty easy for Conte to fix. His ability to produce his final cross and his passing is harder. Generally speaking, when you work with players, you want players to be pretty much there in terms of technical ability by the age of 14 even. If a player, let's say, for example, by the age of 15, can't use his left foot, he's never, ever going to be able to get it to a stage where his left foot is as good as his right foot. At most, you'd have to spend hours and hours and however long to get his left foot to be adequate. So, of course, if Spurs dedicated 2 to 3 hours a week of just his final ball and his end product, then yeah, he could get it to the level where it's excellent. But like I said, technical ability and things like that, that's very hard to improve as you get older because of time constraints and because of the way the brain works. So if he was to sign for Spurs, I would predict that this time next season, he might have a great season, but people will still highlight the same issues with his final ball or his final cross. But hopefully, if he does sign, he would prove me wrong. Hopefully, he'll prove me wrong because, of course, you can see improvement.
Really interesting. And Paul Ferguson says in the comments as well, because I was thinking the same play. He says same as Mitrovic. Again, like what you're saying about Dwight Gale. You look at Mitrovic. CCH said it as well. So loads of people saying it, but is that right as well, Harry? In terms of like brilliant in the Championship, he steps up to the Premier League, doesn't quite do it. I mean, last year he done 42, 44 goals. What proof we'll see this year? He's going to start every game for Fulham, and he's going to score some serious goals in there as well. But I mean, there is players out there that do take that massive leap and are fantastic. Jared Bowen, I think, has been said in the comments. Obviously, I mentioned Dele Alli. So there's a hope there. I think that if Conte, Paratici, the coaching staff have been looking at them, you would hope that this isn't just a Daniel Levy, I can see some pound signs in the future type scenario. Yeah. You hope that they want. Do you know what I mean, Rick? Because actually,
absolutely.
We've been really strong on Jed Spence in the WhatsApp group, haven't we? And Andy Costa has been loving him. So I hope it comes over the line. I think he could be exciting.
Yeah, I think we haven't really had a decent fullback. Well, as in we've bought a decent English fullback. You'd probably say since Kyle Walker-Lee. The guy that you said to us when we sell him.
First ever show, Rick, wasn't it? My first ever show on Last Word On Spurs. I said if we sell Kyle Walker, we're going to have a problem at that position, and we have.
And we still got the same problem 5 years on, 6 years on.
And do you know what? Friend of the show, George Achille, put a tweet out the other day saying about homegrown players. Who could we get? And the one that I put back on him was Kyle Walker. Go and have a little sniff around Kyle again because I know it's all these players coming back or whatever, but I think it'd be fantastic for us now in this in the formation that we've got. So I mean look, Trippier was good in parts. He had a couple of good seasons. And then we've struggled. Kyle Walker-Peters, one of our own. Again, maybe he could have thrived in this scenario, but he's now moved on to Southampton. Serge Aurier, he's available. Why don't we go back and get Serge if we're bringing all the, Ericsson, we get Walker back, we get Serge Aurier, we just go backwards. But no, look, all jokes aside, it is a position that I feel that we definitely need to strengthen, and it'll be interesting to see how this one pans out. If Conte is decided that Emerson Royale is the guy for him, then who are we to argue with Conte? But I've got a feeling that it won't be Emerson Royale. Maybe Doherty will be the backup. And I don't know, going based on Harry's analysis, really, of Jed, he's got some work to do. So maybe we still need to go and find somebody else. Guys, listeners, viewers?
We'll see. We will see. Yeah, we'll see. I mean, listen, there's still lots of time to pan out to the winner. This is the thing. Because we've gone so early on so many players, you have to remind there's still 2 months of the transfer window left to go. We obviously know it was key to get players in early to deal with Conte and pre-season. And that is where we are going to turn our attention to next. What we will do is we will go for our first break of the show for our listeners on audio. For our watching audience on YouTube, there's nearly 1,200 of you plus watching us live. on a Sunday evening, and we've not even hit pre-season yet. So that's due down to the wonderful Lee McQueen. We've got the brilliant Harry Brooks, professional analyst and coach, joining us on the Last Word On Spurs here, giving us some real detailed analysis of hopefully pre-season to come, what it looks like for Tottenham, what it looks like for players, for coaches. And it's a crucial time of any part of any coaches and players' seasons to really get their season underway. And we must say at the moment that we are delighted on Last Word On Spurs to be given one of these shirts by our kit manufacturers at Tottenham Hotspur. If I can turn it around and get you to see it. This is Gatia. This is the Gatia training kit. Now, they are giving fans the chance to win a signed training shirt from their brand new 2022-2023 range, as well as the first match tickets to the first game of the season. All you have to do is download their app, spend 20 quid or more, and select the signed training shirt and match tickets and promo at checkout. So like I say, keep your eyes on the YouTube description and the audio description for all the links to that. But H, essentially, just to steer the show back round to you, I mean, this is your kind of, I want to say, well, it's your gravy, this part, really, in terms of, obviously, this is your bread and butter, the pre-season. It's a key part. Do you just want to give us an idea, H, of kind of for you, what that looks like from a coaching perspective, what you cover, just to give listeners a bit of an idea?
Yeah, I mean, said to you boys before the show started that June and July are the busiest months of the year for me as a coach, because obviously the seasons end, and annoyingly, players of different ages have their breaks at different times. You know, even the other day we saw the England under-19s had just finished a championship, and then so they all break up at different times. So basically, it's not like a set time you can have with all of them, because they're all at different stages and they all need work. So if people think that footballers, when the season's done, that they leave it until pre-season starts, they couldn't be more wrong. They have, most of them, in fact, all of them I know, will give themselves maximum maybe 2 weeks, and then they're doing their pre-season, which I'm obviously a big part, which I'm obviously a part of in terms of leading for a lot of players. Clubs set their programs, so every club will give their players a program. I don't know one single player that only sticks to that. They always do. All the players I know do extras and do other bits, like I said, with me or with elsewhere. And it's just about making sure they go into pre-season with their clubs in the best possible condition, because pre-season can start and the season is scary how quickly the new season comes around, and you need to be in your best possible condition. So that's what it looks like for me, just hours and hours of coaching, recovery, even still analysis and talks. And that's not even talking about the agency side of things in terms of, contract negotiations and transfers and player trials and all of that stuff. So very busy. That's a little bit of what it looks like. And obviously each player requires a different kind of program. So that's my job as well, to make sure that I give the players I work with the detailed and specific program that they need, basically.
That's phenomenal stuff. I mean, I think many will probably be aware of this, but for those that obviously weren't aware, obviously you obviously coached and trained with Stephen Bergwijn. I think you have to remind me, was it down the previous lockdown? You might have to remind me of the time. Was it? I'm trying to remember the time now. You'll know better than me.
Yeah. So I remember it was just after he made his debut. So I can't remember if that was before or the previous lockdown. It was a bit of a blur. But I can't claim to have coached him. I would never claim that. I was a part of the session, so I worked with his strength and conditioning trainer back in Holland, a guy called Ronnie Chowie, brilliant. So he was over here. We would have got pitch work with him, but then COVID hit pretty quick after. And then obviously since then it's kind of, kind of lost contact, which is fine. That's the way it goes. So that's fine. But so I was part of that session. My company was part of that session. We set it up. But me, myself, I didn't actually physically coach him. I was just a part of it and set it all up. But
Okay. No, that's fine. Apologies for the misinterpretation on that.
No.
Just what I'm really intrigued about now from a coaching perspective is, I mean, like you said there, all these players have their own individual set programs. Over the course of the summer, they're going to go
Not individual.
Sorry.
So do you mean from the club set them?
From the club set them, right?
Yeah, So usually they're the exact same for every player, which obviously is not relevant to every single player.
No.
So that's, again, another reason why players have to get their own specific one. Some will give specific individual, but generally speaking, it's across the board hitting certain things, and that's that.
what I'm interested to know is, obviously, of course, the players will go away in the summer. They'll have some form of a break. And again, I suppose, is there still a case where they're being kept to quite a strict regime in terms of still having to really watch what they're doing before they report back to pre-season? Because I imagine with someone like Conte, so very much kind of strict disciplinarian in terms of how he wants his players to be fit. How much leeway is there? Is there much in terms of having any kind of, I would say, any respite over the summer in terms from a diet perspective, or are you just as, from a player's perspective, are you just as hard on yourself as what you would be match to match, if you see where I'm coming from?
Depends on the individual. So every single club will give their group of players a plan to follow, and times when they have to do that. As long as the players do that, then the clubs don't say they not have any control, but that's all the clubs are looking for while they're in their off season. So if a player goes on holiday for 2 weeks and gets pissed and all that kind of stuff, then whatever. So as long as the players do what the clubs say and record it, whatever it might be, then obviously that's what the club demand and ask for. But like I said, all players I know will still do added bits on top of that. However much that is, it's down to the individual, and it can also be depending on the season. So and the stage they are in their career. So don't expect I don't know why he came to my head. Let's say Yamatonga was still around. Don't expect him to, at 34, whatever he is now, to be doing the same kind of pre-season that a Dane Scarlett would be doing. That's trying to make it into the first team. So it's down to the individual. But like I said, I don't know one person that doesn't do their match prep. Their pre-season prep on top of what the club sends them.
Yeah, I mean, we're seeing.
I was going to say that's really interesting about kind of the Beavertown and Dane Scarlett piece, because we got Perisic, who looks ripped to shreds. By the way, in some of it, I mean, he's fit as a fiddle, ripped to shreds. 33, and you're thinking, is he then going to do a different plan or regime than some of the other boys? Like some of I don't know, like just picking them out. Lucas Moura, for example, or like Højbjerg or something like that, being
so 100%. So like a Perisic and a Vertonghen, so they're still going to do their work. They're going to do their pre-season. But what's really interesting is that as the older the players get, the more experience they get, is how well they know their body in comparison to younger players. So they know exactly what they need to do to prepare. Perisic knows exactly what he needs to do to prepare for pre-season. Whereas a younger player might need a bit of guidance. So it's interesting where it's like, it's not, I don't look at it in a way of like, say, me being the coach, I'm the boss of them, or as a player, they're the boss of me. It's always a mutual thing. But it is interesting how, as the players get older, they ask you to work on more things as opposed to you telling them to work on more things. But there's always a bit of give and go anyway. But the older the players get, they know their bodies, they know what they need to do, especially a Perisic. He knows exactly what he needs to do to be in the best condition. He knows his body better than anyone. So he will make sure he does his own thing. And of course, the club will send some stuff and do some stuff. But he knows what he's doing.
I'm just intrigued.
Brilliant insight. Brilliant.
Yeah, I'm just intrigued to know, H, when you look at the fact, we've had obviously coaches down the years of like Mourinho, Pochettino. Now, obviously, I nearly threw Nuno in there. I can throw Nuno for a little bit for 4 months. And obviously, Conte. That obviously, I mean, the two that really stick out, of course, is Conte and Pochettino, because the way that their pre-season, their coaching, their training is described is obviously being a real rigorous approach. It's a very much high intensity, seismic training that, I think players, when you read it in the media, and it's different obviously because you are obviously as someone that's obviously in the knowledge of this piece, it seems that players, media, it seems to be a dread. I'm just intrigued to know from a coach's perspective, how different you think that is approaching a coaching sessions like Conte and Pochettino to maybe the way different other coaches structure it. Is it as intense? Is it as hard as what is claimed in the media, do you think, or is it built up a little bit?
It is hard and intense, especially someone like Conte, because it's not just the physical work he's doing, it's the mental fatigue that players will feel, because he is so insistent on getting his patterns and his drills and patterns of play, locked into the players, the players' heads, so they know exactly what they're going to do. That's mentally exhausting, not including the physical stuff. It is very exhausting. It is tough. I actually have a bit of a bugbear with a lot of clubs that I think that, a lot of clubs don't do enough actually with regards to players. A lot of clubs during the season, whatever. And of course, it's different situations and different things. So if you've got 3 games a week, it's different. But, most clubs, a lot of them, they're done by midday. The sessions aren't always as intense. So there's always opportunities to do extra and do more, even if it's light technical stuff, and it doesn't have to physically drain you. Which I have issues, but that's with most clubs that I've seen, that I've been a part of. I'm not digging them out, but I just think that, there could be a bit more done. Because of course, the games are exhausting, but you can always do a little bit more in terms of training that doesn't have to physically exhaust you. But this pre-season from Conte, it will be very tough on the players. They probably won't have experienced anything like it because of, like I said, not just the physical fatigue. It'll be the mental fatigue of making sure it's done exactly how Conte wants. Jose, his style of football was, he wasn't as big on the sports science side. Of course, players have to be fit and disciplined. He gave a lot of freedom to the creative and attacking players to try and figure out their work out the ways to score goals and create chances. With Conte, it's the exact opposite. So it is going to be very mentally and physically draining, but the players will start the season fit as a fiddle. You can guarantee that much.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because many comments here, and the fact with Pochettino as well. I mean, I don't know if you, Lee, have a view on that. The fact that because you're challenging the players, like H says, they're under real kind of, I wouldn't say you use the word scrutiny, but they know, like H said, it's going to be a really hard, intense environment to come back into, to come straight back in, to put all the effort in. Do you think that's got a shorter shelf life, Lee, as King Hoddle says there? That's maybe why by Pochettino by the third year. That's why players are like, I've been put through all this, and for what? It's got to be trophies. Do you think, Lee, that's the reason why under Conte, it is a case of trying to win now? You look at the players that we've brought in, 4 so far in the summer transfer window, because it is really taxing on the body, on the mind, because it is just as well as physical and mental, right? It's both of those factors that weigh into this.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely fascinating conversation, and the mental side of the game is fascinating to me. I think that most people, if you're sports fans, you've probably been wrapped up this week in Wimbledon. Obviously, completely nothing to do with Tottenham, nothing to do with football. But the physical side of tennis for 3.5 hours, they get like 1 minute rest in between. It's like bloody doing a hit workout for 3 hours. Physically, but then when it comes down to it, is mentally, can they play the right shot at the right time in the right scenario? And I'm just alluding to what Harry said there before about Conte. We know that he sets up with almost like NFL style playbooks, and we know that he's got to play for so many different things. This is what fascinates me, Harry, about the coaching side and the mental side of the game, because physically you can get into shape. Like physically, I could be fit as a fiddle and I could run up and down, and that is a lot of the time. But if mentally I don't know how to pass or be in a position that I need to be in at that certain time or make that move right, then moves are going to break down and you're never going to be able to execute them. So for me, I think that it is both that physicality and that mental side of things. And I think the players that Conte's signed, the people that he's brought into the football club, have that ability up here as well as everywhere else as well. Does that make sense? And I think that's the bit that's. I think the bit that if you look at Leicester, the way Leicester won the Premier League, the Championship. I mean, I know it's called the Championship. I meant the Premier League. You know what I mean, right? But when they won in 15-16 season. Why did they win? Because they started, in my opinion, they had the physicality. They didn't have loads of world-class players. No disrespect to them, they didn't. They were in the bloody virtually the bottom 3 season before. But what they did was they was well coached, well drilled, understood where they needed to do, what their style of play was, what they were doing, they were executing, and that was the mental side of the game. Hopefully, Harry, you'll agree with that. And when you look at some of these other clubs like Klopp. King Holding mentioned earlier about, is that because Conte just revolves after 2-3 seasons or whatever? Klopp's been there for 6 seasons. I'm sure he puts them through some real hard training sessions on the basis of, pressing and high pressing. But again, tactically, how Liverpool set up, how they play, they've got an identity, they've got a style, they know what they're going to do. And regardless of their opposition, they're going to go out and they're going to be on the front foot and they're going to play and they're going to use their they're not even wing backs, are they? Like Trent and Robertson are going to go and they're going to be their main force of attack, really from an assist perspective. So again, well drilled, well coached, well understood of what they're meant to be doing. So Harry, back over to you. You're the expert. That's the mental side of the game, isn't it?
Yeah, a lot of it. And, a little thing about Klopp, my colleague was working with a player that played under Klopp at Dortmund last summer. And he says that as a coach, as people know, as a tactician, he's not like a genius compared to some others. That's why he's got his assistants. But what he is, he said he described it as, with Klopp, you can go into the team meeting very calm, very relaxed, and 15 minutes later, you come out frothing at the mouth, ready to run through brick walls for the man. So a lot of that is from Klopp's ability as a man manager to bleed everything from his players. Now, but even then, he's shown in the past that can have a shelf life, because that style and level of football and that intense engagement physically and mentally can wear people out. That was why the last season at Dortmund was bordering on a disaster. They all of a sudden didn't turn into a bad team, but there wasn't that freshening up. There wasn't that change of voice. There wasn't that new set of players. So it is exhausting, and that's why you do need to constantly refresh as well. And it's why I'm a little bit surprised that actually, Klopp hasn't really shown any signs of letting up, but then again, there has been freshening up of the team. So it's one of those where if Klopp and Pep if they had done what happened at Pochettino and Tottenham, and let's say, for example, the same core kind of players had stuck and there wasn't really much freshening up, I'm pretty sure we would have seen a massive downturn by now from Man City and Liverpool, because you need that change. You need those new voices that aren't exhausted by it. You need those new challenges. That's why Ferguson at Man United was probably the main reason why he was able to stay there for so long and keep winning trophy after trophy. Yeah. It was that it didn't matter if Ferguson sold a Cristiano Ronaldo, because you just find another way to play. You find someone else, another. He changes his assistant manager however many times. Conte, generally speaking, does have his way of playing no matter what, obviously, and it is a very intense voice. So it is normal that it gets to a certain time and players can't take it no more. But obviously, the idea and the hope is that, I guess there's two hopes for Tottenham, is that before that happens, that they can, get the success they want, or maybe Conte shows something that we haven't seen before and he's able to adapt and freshen up and it doesn't all blow up at the end. So time will tell with that.
Harry, that freshening up that you're talking about there, again, I think it's an absolutely banking point for Spurs, because, again, friend of the show, Chris Callum, talks about 518 days without signing a player. And when you look at that trajectory that we didn't sign any players for, so we didn't freshen up the squad, Pochettino, then obviously that subsequent season, I think we were 5 points off the top spot coming into the end of February that season, and we got to the Champions League final. Went a bit Pete Tong in the league that year, but we still finished top four. But then obviously got to the Champions League final. But then it caught up with us, that not going over the line, that relentlessness of, here we go again. We've got to go and do the same double sessions pre-seasons. We haven't won anything. We need to we didn't really freshen the squad up. All them things start to build up, don't they, H? And it's kind of
if Spurs, if Spurs want to get to a stage where they can consistently fight for titles, I mean, they haven't even won a trophy in however long. So getting the first one is the first hurdle. And I'm not just talking about winning the odd FA Cup or League Cup, but if they want to get to a stage where they can legitimately challenge consistently for titles, then they can only do that by getting themselves into a position where it's okay if a Kane or a Son gets sold, because the standards are still there, the environment is still there. Like we said, the biggest teams and the best well-run clubs at the top in the history of football, or certainly as long as I've been alive, it's, of course, you have a downside if you lose your best player, but it doesn't instantly collapse. Spurs aren't there yet. If Spurs sold Kane or Son right now, there'd be a bit of an uproar and a bit of a downturn. Whereas you look at Man City or Liverpool, I mean, there was rumours about Salah leaving Liverpool, and it might not have even been the worst thing for them, because they would have freshened up elsewhere. So Spurs want to get themselves to a stage where they can consistently challenge for those titles. The freshening up as well as maintaining the environment is massive, rather than it just being a quick flush. So that's huge. But obviously, time will tell if they can do that.
What I'm intrigued to ask you, H, listen, I've got to say, there's been so much love for you in the comments tonight. So many people loving the fact that, we've really changed up over the course of the summer, some of our shows that we've done in terms of content. We could sit and talk about the transfer window every week, but I think everyone probably agrees that I think there's a certain limit to that. That's why we love doing these shows. We've had, obviously, Kieran Maguire on. We've talked about financial tonight. We're doing from a coaching perspective, psychological perspective. I think these shows really bring into light areas that we're not able to always touch. And we really appreciate you, mate, giving us so much of your time. I'm intrigued to know from your perspective, Conte, to be fair, hasn't got the greatest European record. And I think what's going to be key this season is how he manages the team in between Premier League to European football, bearing in mind the lack of real success that he's had in terms of being able to kind of filter from Champions League to Premier League. How do you see that really panning out for the upcoming season? Do you have a view on how maybe he'll look to maybe adapt or change from a coaching perspective, or do you think he'll back his ideas because of the amount of success he's had? Was it 5 titles in the last 8 opportunities available to him?
If you're talking about, you can only say what we see and what we've seen so far. If we're being completely honest with ourselves, it's unlikely that Spurs are going to be very successful in the Premier League and in Europe, because that's what history says. History shows that Conte struggles with multiple competitions. Perhaps he has adapted his views and has found ways to be able to manage both competitions. A big part of that is having a deeper squad, which they're seeing, but it's more in terms of the preparation required for each game. That obviously now, when there's like 3 games a week to prepare for, as opposed to say a 2 games a week or 1 game on the weekend and then wait until the next week, obviously that gives you a lot more time to prepare for games, which is vital, because Conte's, as you said earlier, Lee, Conte's almost playbook in terms of patterns of play, it has to be drilled in, and obviously there's going to be different adaptations to that depending on the opposition and how to counteract their patterns of play and stuff like that. And that takes work and that takes time. And quite often that's work and time that isn't necessarily available for teams that play in the Champions League. Because let's say, for example, you have your standard week. Let's say you play on the Saturday, fine. Then Sunday might be recovery or day off. Monday might be all of a sudden you're preparing again tactically and physically for the game on the Tuesday. Then you're flying back late Tuesday. You maybe have a day off on a Wednesday, or you rest on Wednesday. All of a sudden Thursday, Friday, and the game is on Saturday. So it's very difficult for players to take in all of the information required. So Conte much prefers it, obviously, and it probably even made, I don't know the stats, but I'd imagine that when Spurs had a more of a clear week last season, I'd imagine their performances improved or the results were better. I don't know if that's true.
I think just the one defeat, I think, in between those weeks. Yeah, just the one defeat when he's had the full
6
week.
days or 7 days to prepare. We virtually won, like you said, one defeat.
Just by one. I think we got a 90% record of winning when Spurs ever
there you go. Yeah, there you go. It's vital to Conte. So he's going to have to show that they can do it, or it's a situation where you accept, if you do accept it, that it doesn't have to be failure. It could be that Spurs get third, maybe win an FA Cup or League Cup and get knocked out in the last round of 16. I mean, would anybody call that really a failure in any competition? Probably not.
Depends what they do on the rest.
Yeah, exactly. So, you're probably not, but it depends on, obviously, like I said, it doesn't mean they're not going to qualify from the groups, but don't start thinking that Spurs are going to do the quadruple next year, because I would put it this way, it's not happening.
We've just lost 1,000 listeners.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know really the right time to talk about, because I've got some stats around Liverpool, and we've talked about them quite a lot with Klopp, and you've just brought them up again there in terms of the quadruple, and they were going for that last season. So I don't know, Rick, if you're all right with me, just take a minute or so just to talk about it.
So yeah, absolutely.
I love data and analysis, and obviously that's analytics and analysis, and the coaching is what you're doing. So could you give us any insight into kind of how some clubs that you've worked with, or if it's a generalization, that will actually set out targets for the year, or for the season ahead? So will there, maybe it's horses for courses, but will some clubs kind of look at it and go, look, last year we got 71 points. We need to increase that by 10 points, or we want an increase in 10% or 20% of performance, or we lost 13 points to the likes of Wolves at home and Southampton at home and Burnley away on that fateful night. Actually, we need to. Did they, or is it something slightly different? Because obviously in my line of work in business, we write a business plan and we set out our business goals, and then we run to them. I'm just, from a business side of football, it's run the same. From a coaching perspective, how is that sort of set up, that side of it, Harry?
It's going to be a really boring answer, but the fact is there is no answer, because it's all clubs now that have access to it use data with regards to recruitment in players, or looking at their previous games and stuff like that, and where they need to improve and things like that. The data analyst community tends to hate my guts quite a lot because of the way I speak from a coach's perspective. But listen, I'm only jesting about that. It's a huge and it's a very necessary introduction to football. The ability to use data correctly, and everyone does it differently. So, of course, as any well-run business should have, you are going to have targets, whether it's yearly targets or season targets or however it looks. Now, it completely depends on the club and the manager or the coaching staff how they portray those targets. So we've heard about the stories before about how Ferguson with his names in a letter about his motivation tool. Some people might say we've got to hit this, we've got to hit that, or we've got to make up a certain number of points. This is how we do it. It's complete. These conversations will be going on all the time, and how to get those margins, how to make our defence concede this less goals, how to stop conceding chances maybe from the right hand side of the pitch, how to create chances from, we've created chances from those areas but not these areas. How can we do that? So all the clubs have all the information necessary to them to look for what they want, and then it's how they apply that. And everyone has their own way of applying that. So a lot of clubs are incredibly data driven. I know Brentford are huge on their recruitment, and I believe I'm pretty sure data is a huge part of that. I know Brighton are huge on data, absolutely massive on data recruitment. And other coaches and managers might not be so strong on it, but it's still existing at all clubs that can afford it or can use it, which is pretty much everyone now, I guess. And obviously, it's depending on the manager and the coaching staff, and the clubbers themselves, how they put that across in terms of actual targets for the season, for an individual and for a thing. So it could be, for example, let's say you've got a player like a Jed Spence. They could give him the target if they sign him with hitting a certain number of accurate crosses. That's a really basic way of putting it. A club won't do that. No. But I'm just highlighting that it can be like
that's interesting. Stuff. Yeah, that's interesting because actually starting a season going right, we're going to win. All right, lads, how you getting on? We're going to win the league. Like that's just not going to happen. Like I did a bit of boring analysis, but I'm going to say it because I've done the analysis, so it's coming out of the blue. But winning teams in the Premier League over the last 10 seasons, okay? So, I wanted to take a decent size average over that period. So I've done 10 years. So average goals scored if you win the Premier League over 10 years is 97. So typically, it's not an exact science. But what I'm saying is, for Tottenham to be considered to be going after the title, we're going to need to be in and around, that's why I mentioned it earlier, in and around a 90 goal mark, 97 on average over 10 years. And the average goals against, I was actually quite surprised by this, actually, but it's 35. So effectively, you can afford to let in 35 goals and you can still be in with a chance of winning the title. And the reason why I picked them two stats, obviously there's a lot of other stuff that goes in there, is because typically the more goals you score, the more matches you win. However, it was pointed out to me by our good friend, one of our own, Jason McGovern as well. It's not actually how many goals you score, it's if they're match winners or not. So you could actually go and score 38 goals and win every game 1-0 and still end up winning the league. But typically over that 10 season average is 97 goals scored and 35 wins. So I'll be looking at that maybe from using that data perspective and saying, right, how do I solve the problem of scoring more goals? Because Spurs scored 69 last year. And how do I solve the problem of conceding less goals? Because we conceded 40 goals. Does that make sense? Or am I talking absolute gibber? But
no, you are talking. You're talking complete sense in terms of course, clubs look at how they can get these margins and where it's needed. But as you alluded to, there's always context needed with all of this because, generally speaking, the majority of Premier League winners, especially in the last since Pep has been there and Klopp, have been a style of football that looks to completely suffocate opposition, whether it's on the ball or off the ball or whatever. Conte is not from that same cloth. He is actually a manager that is happier with his team sitting slightly deeper and being more direct and counter, which isn't usually the team that wins the league. But this is what winds me up about when people nowadays seem to think that you have to play a certain way to win a league. And it's, well, no, you don't. You can win the league with any style of football as long as it's a style of football that fits you or whatever. So actually, their style of play, Spurs might end up conceding less goals, which might mean that they win more games 1-0 as opposed to, say, a title challenge team winning 3-0. It's still the same thing as long as you get enough points. So, of course, Spurs are going to have to improve their goal output. They are going to have to concede less goals. That's obvious to push higher up the league. But as you said, Lee, it's not always it's good to have a look at those things and see, but it isn't always about, okay, this is what the hard data says, and this is what we need to follow. It's about, okay, how can I make what I see relevant to what it is for us? It should always be, in my opinion, it should never be data or stats leading the decisions. It should be the decisions are either helped or backed up or
supported by almost, isn't it?
Support. There you go. Yeah. Supported by that. It should never. If anyone ever signs a player based number one off of data, God help them, because that is not how it should be done. In my honest opinion, and I don't care who you are that says that, it really shouldn't be done that way. Data, if it's possible, should be used, but only in addition to what you see, what you feel. Because those are tangibles you can't see. The example I use is when Spurs played Newcastle last year. Spurs beat them 5-1. I have no idea if St. Maximin had a certain number of shots, dribbles, or whatever. But what I do know is that because I was there in the stadium, when the ball went to him, there was this electricity. You felt something. You felt the Spurs players were a little bit on edge. You felt the crowd were a bit on edge. You felt the Newcastle fans and Newcastle players get a bit more. You can't quantify how important that is for the momentum of a game, and that's not spoken about enough nowadays. Plays that can change momentum. Aaron Lennon used to do that. Aaron Lennon used to do it years ago. His stats were probably awful, but when the ball went to Aaron Lennon, you can picture it now and hear it. The sound of the seats getting up, the fans on edge. That puts the opposition players on edge. That G's you up. The crowd are on side. All of a sudden, you get those extra percentages that can't be quantified by data, but it's a huge part of the game.
That's fascinating, isn't it? It's so honestly fascinating to say that. I mean,
that is a spanking point. Absolute spanking point. Just quickly, Rick, just to finish off on this side of things with the data thing with my little blue book. Liverpool, I mentioned this recently on the pod a couple of times. I'm going to bring it up again because I want to keep trying to remind our fan base that we have an opportunity. If we recruit well enough, we have an opportunity. So 2017-18 season, Liverpool got 75 points. It was Klopp's fourth season in charge. Sorry, he'd been there two and a half seasons. 22-point swing the next season. So 2018-19 season, they got 97 points. Now, the thing is, right, they recruited really well. They got Virgil van Dijk in that January. And then in that summer, they got Naby Keita. They got Origi. They got Alisson. They did that bit and they recruited really well. So they'd had the foundations of Klopp. They recruited really well, had a good couple of pre-seasons under them. By the way, they'd already got to two cup finals, Europa League final and a League Cup final under Klopp in his first season. What interested me is the goals for and the goals against. Now, in the 17-18 season, when they got 75 points, they scored 84 goals and conceded 38. In the second season, bearing in mind, in that following season, bearing in mind they signed Virgil van Dijk and Alisson, so really good recruitment. They scored 89 goals, so only 5 more goals, but they only conceded 22. So they improved their defensive bit, and maybe that's just from hiring in defenders, maybe that's from suffocating teams, as you mentioned before. But they analysed, as a team and said, we need to improve these areas. They improved them, and they got a swing of 16 goals in terms of their favour. Only conceded 22, and they went on to get 97 points. Again, I think I'm just trying to reinforce the fact that if we recruit well and we get it right with the people that we've got at a football club, we can make something happen next season.
Yeah, of course, 100%.
It wasn't a question. It was just more of a tale, but yeah.
Yeah, it is that simple. It really is that simple. Like I said, Spurs being in the Champions League will make it, I would say, almost impossible for them to win the league as soon as next season because of what we've seen with that. Conte struggles with managing both top-tier competitions. But, yeah, of course they can have a great season. And I think Spurs should be the ones that say, okay, well, if Liverpool and Man City do have a drop-off, they're the ones to be, next in line and take advantage of that.
Amazing. Harry, I know you probably can't see this, mate. Go on, Lee.
Rick, just one quick last one, that, and I promise I'll zip my mouth. When you talk about drop-off, people will say, it will come up in the comments, no, there's no way that they're going to have a drop-off. They're elite teams. They're this, that, and the other, and this, that, and the other. Not last season, season 4. If last season was just the one that's gone, Liverpool got 69 points in the league. So it can happen. They have had a drop-off. And by the way, getting 97 points, 99 points, and winning the title to having a 69-point season. There's a 30-point drop-off, and it happened. So it can happen.
Yeah. No, it's incredible. Harry, I must say, mate, I know because obviously you're on the mobile, you want to see this, H, there is so much love pouring in for you on this show in the comments. It's all going ballistic, so lots of love for you. What we will just do is we'll go just for our final break of the show for our listeners on audio. For our watching audience on YouTube, there's still nearly 1,200 of you, plus watching us live. We're with the brilliant,
how many likes we got, Rick? How many likes we got?
I can't. How many likes we got, Lee? Can you see how many likes we've got?
I'm not even being funny. 1,200 people. If they're watching, they're bored, right, and they don't like it, or they love what they're seeing. So just press the like button, man. Just do it now. In a little break for the audio, they're all still listening to their lovely adverts while you're on YouTube now. Ready, steady, go. Hey, that's it. Just push the like button. That's it. That's all you got to do. Amazing stuff. It really helps us. It really, really does. It does. I know it's shameless plug-in, but I don't care because I'm shameless. So
that's why I let Lee do it.
Thank you.
Final part of the show. The wonderful Lee McQueen joining me, of course. The wonderful Lee McQueen. How can we ever listen? Lee McQueen, absolutely loving him as always. Co-host of Last Word On Spurs. He'll be here all season, unless it's Carabao Cup nights or Europa League or Europa Conference League nights, and you won't see him on those shows. He doesn't do these shows. Only does the top tier shows. I just want to ask you just finally on this show, just about the psychological pressures on young players, on professional players. I mean, we're in a game now where really you're judged on kind of your last performance, right? I mean, it feels like with the intensity of social media, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, papers, players, they have to kind of deal with a lot of pressure these days from fans, from coaches, and from everybody in the game. I just wonder, for your time working with players, nurturing players, how much is that, H, a case where players do need confidence? And confidence is such a big word in football, and it can easily shatter. We see it with players with Spurs. Dele Alli, for example. Dele, a player that was at the peak of his powers. We're talking 2 or 3 years ago, and he's found it so hard to get back to that level, subsequently leaving the football club. How much, H, does that play a part in the modern world now? Mental health, the confidence of players now?
Mentality and confidence is everything. There are countless numbers of talented footballers in the world. Never mind London. You go to any Power League or goals down the road and you'll see some pictures and you're like, oh, he's a player. Now, of course, there's a lot of tangibles that can go into that. It could be the right coach at the right time, and so many things can happen. I don't really believe in luck, but of course, there are certain things that can go your way and not go your way that you aren't always in control of. But I am a big believer in that actually you can make, and this I guess is anything in life, you can get what you want if you truly go for it. And it's that mentality and that confidence that is the difference between the players that have the talent and the players that make the talent last and established. But there are so many challenges that players face nowadays. I mean, they've always faced challenges, but even more so nowadays. And it is so hard, I'm sure if there are people who are listening, if there's anyone listening that's ever had a go at a player online, you're a melt and you need to get a life because it's ridiculous. The amount of nonsense they get, even the other days, people saw that I was working with Sonny Perkins. The stuff that I've seen his name on Twitter, like it's insane. It's insane and it's wrong. I don't get why people do it, but people do it. But the good thing is that there are so many morons out there that when they all speak and talk nonsense, it just kind of, for a lot of people, becomes water off a duck's back, which isn't a good thing. That shouldn't be the case. But the psychological thing is the biggest part of anything in life, I guess. And it always will be the biggest part of success, how far you make it, how far you push it. Harry Kane was a talented footballer. He was not at 17 years old, a world's greatest striker, arguably, footballer. He made himself that. And the example I always use for that is, I don't know if people remember when he scored his first Premier League goal versus Sunderland. Yeah. In that same game, he was the side in the box to the side, and he tried to open his foot up and do, the Thierry Henry finish. And he completely caught it down the middle of his foot, and it went down the keeper's throat, but he went through his legs and had a Boyard tapped in. I don't know if people remember that goal. Now, that was Harry Kane at, say, 21. I guarantee you, if Harry Kane is in that same position now, that ball ends up in the far side of the goal. Whether it's in or not, just whistles past the post, it ends up in that area. That's the man of a confident man that's dedicated himself to improve his craft. Confidence and mentality is everything. Everything. There's loads of talented footballers. Loads. I can find them anywhere. but the ones that can actually apply it to the higher stages. What I say to players coming through is, let's say that you are a player that's on the cusp of making it. Let's say you've made your first team debut somewhere. The two biggest hurdles for the player to jump through is, the first one is to becoming an established pro, because actually it's pretty easy for a manager to give a player a token chance every now and again. So you saw Kazar Sterling made his debut in the Champions League a few years ago at 18. It was a token sub. It was great, amazing for him. You should be very proud and remember it forever. But it wasn't, it was, and it's an incredible achievement. But the two biggest hurdles were still there to jump. It's one thing getting an appearance every now and again when you've already won the game. It's another thing becoming an established first team player. And then the hurdle after that, and usually there's always freaks like Jamie Vardy, but usually after that, you've got until like the age of 22, 23 max, that determines how far that career goes. Is it Tottenham in the Champions League? Is it Championship? Is it League One, League Two? Is it non-league? And anything in between. They're the hardest bridges to gap, and it's mentality that decides it. Loads of talented footballers, loads everywhere, but it's how you apply it all. And of course, certain tangibles like the right coach at the right time. So, if Harry Kane was the same player at 21 right now, coming through right now, chances are he wouldn't be playing for Tottenham, because Spurs are in a position of strength. They've got a manager that wants the experienced players. Back then, Adebayor and Soldado were arguably failing. They got in Tim Sherwood, who loved him, loved youth players. He got his chance, got his foot in the door. Next season, played in the Europa League, so he got the minutes there. Again, Adebayor and Soldado failing, so he could not play. And then he made the spot his own. So a lot of it is timing, but it's mentality and mindset. And when you get that opportunity, have you got the quality and the mindset to keep hold of it and make it last?
It's fascinating, isn't it, Lee? I mean, again, like we don't do enough on this subject. I think again, Harry makes that point there. I think we have to put this out there. That to basically go after a player on social media, I've never really personally understood why you would do that. I think people forget these are human, right? They're just the same as us, normal people. It's a job. They're doing it for the love of the game.
They won't read it or they don't see it or whatever, but they do. And and you're tagging them in. Like, it's like you're tagging them in. You're actually ringing someone up and going, "You all right, Rick? You're a bellend," or "All right, Rick, you're rubbish." I mean, you just wouldn't do that in normal life. You shouldn't walk into the pub, walk up to Rick, and go, "Rick, your show last night was shit." Like, just wouldn't do it.
You might do, depending on who it is.
No, you never Last Word On Spurs, mate. But I think that whole mentality piece is absolutely crucial. I've got no doubt in my mind that the reason why Spurs got top four is because of the atmosphere at that stadium in the last few weeks. The atmosphere built around the team. At Spurs, massive credit for that. Like THFC flags, Tim Winston, like singing the song. Like, I could give out loads of shouts to them, but they started to change the mentality of the fans in the stadium, and I've got no doubt that started to have an effect. In a positive way. So we're talking about the positive side, but so why be the negative side? Start, booing at halftime. Okay, you pay your money. You can let everybody know as a collective. Do you know what? That weren't very good, lads. You've got to pull your socks up, or girls, you've got to pull your socks up. Come out second half, do something different, whatever. But actually abusing people on social media or targeting them, specifically. I just don't understand it. And again, I think that I think there was a comment. I think it was Paul Russell said, Harry Kane didn't score until November because of the Man City saga. I actually don't think it was the Man City saga. I think it was the fact that England, for the first time since 1966, had the opportunity in a final to win a major championship, and they lost on penalties. Now, you go back and do the analysis and look at the behaviour of Sterling, of Kane, of Luke Shaw, of Harry Maguire, Jordan Pickford, for example, all stalwarts, Jadon Sancho, all stalwarts in that side. Yet, how did they respond straight away? Mentally, was they fatigued mentally starting that season thinking we could have been legends for England? Do you know what I mean? So I think that's also going to make a play this year, because if whoever is playing for Tottenham, don't have to be England players, of course, but whoever's playing for Tottenham getting to the final and they lose or they win, imagine this, just a quick scenario, right? I don't know, let's just pick on Brazil, Richarlison, right? he wins the World Cup for Brazil, and then 3 days later he's got to come back and play, against Nottingham Forest at home. He's just won the World Cup 3 days ago, or a week ago. I mean, mentally, Harry, that's a big ask, isn't it? Like, I'm not, I'm not talking about Richarlison. I'm talking about any player. Mentally, that is a big ask. You've just done the thing that you've always wanted to do since you was like 3 years old, and now all of a sudden you've got to turn up against whoever turn up against Bournemouth away.
Yeah, it's huge, and that's down to each. It's very hard work, and that's down to each character as a person, and there's no one rule to it. So you could say that Richarlison's going to come back and he's going to be playing against Nottingham Forest in the FA Cup, and he's frothing in the mouth to go again and do something else because he's just on cloud nine. Another thing could be, is he, like as you said, is he just mentally exhausted because he's achieved this dream that he's been trying for all his life, and it can't get any better than that. So it is fascinating, and it's why you can have all the genius in the world in terms of understanding football tactics, instead of understanding attributes of players' abilities and being able to read opposition and analyze and things like that. If you can't manage people, then you're going to fail. Fact.
Yeah.
If you are a great man manager, but you're a bit basic on tactics or whatever it is, you can achieve anything you want. If you can manage people, you can achieve anything you want. It's the biggest thing. And understanding the way that players' brains works and what works for them, because everyone's different as well. If it was just the same thing, the same word could be said and they all are great, or they're all whatever, or they're all confident, then fine. Yeah. But life doesn't work that way. They all react to things differently. And that's down to themselves as players, the people around them and the club to work out what's best. And there's no science to it. There's no exact answer. It might not be what's best. You might have a player that can't get confident for a while. He might need one to go in off his arse for him to get confident. There's nothing that anyone can say. He might have a goal drought and one goes in off his arse and now he's confident. And there's nothing, doesn't matter anything anyone was saying to him before, and until that goal happens. It's like what I say to young academy players that I work with. It's like, or young pros, it's like you can be confident and you can believe that you're good enough to be a professional footballer. But until you feel it, until you step on that pitch with the crowd around you and the professional players on the same pitch, you don't really know. You don't know if you can do it. So you can believe it and be confident all you want, but you need to feel it to really believe it. You need to experience it to really know what it is. And I guess that's like in any walk of life, I guess, but I can only relate it to what I know. So yeah, of course it's massive and it's huge and everyone's different. It's such a complex thing.
Out of interest, H, obviously coming towards the close of the show, I just want to ask you, obviously Spurs now, the majority of that squad are going to begin pre-season tomorrow. Obviously, for everyone on a Monday morning commute, that will be today. Obviously, July the 4th, it'll be on the Monday. So we're seeing the bulk of players come back. What I'm intrigued to know from your perspective is that there's going to be 4 new additions in that dressing room. And obviously, I think Richarlison at the moment is still in Brazil, so it'll probably be the 3 lads that are there. Again, coming into a new dressing room, it's, for those players, it's a new environment, a new experience. Maybe obviously they've had Premier League football. How much of that as a player, again, does that take a bit of acclimatising to getting used to? They're going off to South Korea soon. Can a player adapt that fairly quickly, do you think, H?
Again, it all depends on the person. Some people can go in and they just take to it straight away. And again, but everyone's different. And you just highlighted it again there. Even in how quickly does a player acclimatise to his new environments, even to the surrounding culture and environment. It's again, I said it twice already on this show, but why signing and paying big money for and even athletes that have already been at your club for a while, giving them new big money contracts. How do you know how they're going to react to that? Now they've got the security of another 4-year contract. So there are so many tangibles that go into the success of a player or whatever, and that's why clubs want to go for the experienced ones. They all do it, They all want the players where you can't ever guarantee something, but you can as pretty much locked in that they're going to do a job for you. It's the ones like, they get fans off the seat, and me as well. And I loved him, and I still do. Like Tongi and Dombele, love him. Love the signing. But when you think about it, it's such an absurd signing to make. There was clearly no previous work done into his character. There was clearly no idea if he could acclimatise. If he was going to fail and flop, there was nothing there to sort of protect him, because let's say, for example, Haaland goes to Man City and he failed, which he wouldn't, I don't think, but let's say he did. You've still got a huge amount of goals in that team to cover that, whereas he was known as the Spurs saviour, a man that's never played in the league, doesn't know the language, has had history of maybe not being able to like acclimatise to rigorous environments.
Great point.
When you think about it, it's absolutely bonkers that they paid that money for him. So you need as many tangibles to go your way. And like I said, people that know me know I'm a huge Ndombele fan. I still am. But it's a bonkers signing when you think about it. Signings like Forster, Richarlison, and even someone like Perisic, who is clearly known as like a very mentally driven winner, very strong character. That makes sense because there's no way of knowing if he's going to acclimatise to the Premier League or Tottenham Hotspur, but you can have a pretty good guess when you look at his history and his record and who he is as a person that he's going to be all right. So again, it's down to each person. But yeah, there's challenges that everybody faces every single day. You know, even the situation of waking up and you're waking up and the air is different. You know, if you're coming from a club abroad and the language is different and like not knowing how to get to the training ground and needing a driver and not having your mates there. So it's, there's so many things to it. And like I said, the reason why managers and coaches go for the tried and tested is because it gives them as many tangibles as they possibly can have.
Yeah, I've got to say, there's been love for you pouring throughout the night. The comments have been coming in. Honestly, loads of love. I think final question for me really is what you think this week's going to look like. I suppose it's difficult because you're not going to probably be in the camp with Conte, but is it a lot of kind of, is it the bleep test? A lot of does it start?
There'll be a lot this week. There'll be a lot of intense work. A lot of clubs still do use the bleep test. Most of them now don't use that as a marker for fitness. They do the 1,000-meter test, which is basically doing 1,000 meters as fast as you can. The best time I ever saw was a Hibernian first team player who got 3 minutes 02, which is just otherworldly insane. It doesn't make any sense how someone could do 1,000 meters that quick, but it is what it is. So there's lots of different things, but there'll be lots of the ball out there, because it's enjoyable when you can do a lot of fitness with the ball. So there'll be, it's going to be tough, but generally speaking, coaches and that, they don't want to just kill the players. They want them to make sure that they're having fun as well and they enjoy what they do. So there'll be lots of ball work and things like that. But yeah, it is going to be tough. It's going to be rigorous and they're going to work the players through a sweat. I can guarantee that much.
Superb. Lee, you got any final questions at all for H?
Yeah, final question for me is actually one of our stalwart viewers, Adrian, asked a question earlier. Like, what are the could you just give us a kind of a quick understanding why pre-season is so important? Like, just a quick summary. It's like so many people say, "Oh, get the players." Like the club's been signing players like after pre-season's been going on for 3 weeks or 4 weeks in the past, like deadline. Why is it so important to get them in and get them a full pre-season?
You want them to acclimatise to the ideas and the groups of the players as early as possible to build relationships and understanding with each other. So, like I said, we just spoke about Conte's playbook and patterns. You want the wing back to understand them as early as possible, not 3 games already into the season. So that's a huge thing, of course. And there's different things. People think that it's just running and all that. It is. It's almost impossible for a team. Actually, it is impossible. It's impossible for a team to be 100% capacity throughout the entirety of the season. So a lot of people plan their preseason and they're during in-season training to hit maximum fitness levels at certain times. So a lot of clubs choose to start strong maybe, or make sure they're strong over the Christmas, or make sure they end strong. You can't really do it where they're strong throughout. So a lot of it's preparation for the season upcoming. If you start slow, you're always catching up. That's why Eden Hazard has massively struggled at Real Madrid, because he went into Real Madrid unfit. He worked so hard to try and get that back, and now he's playing catch up. So his body kept breaking down. So if you don't start in that positive rhythm and momentum fitness wise, it could be really hard to catch that up. So if you're starting the season and you're feeling leggy and you're feeling like you're not quite at that level, that's when injuries can come, because now the games are coming. Now they're there. Now the intensity is there.
Now you're almost doing it as and when.
You're trying to catch up. And when you're trying to catch up with that intensity, that's when your body starts to break down. And when it starts to break down, you get recovery, you try to come back as quick as you can. And it can be a really hard thing. Start pre-season on the best you can, and that momentum can go through. I said to all the younger players, all the 23s that I was working with this summer, you better goddamn make sure that when you go back into that first team environment, you are the best player there. Because if you go in there are going to be players in your teammates that are undercooked. So all of a sudden, after a week, when the first team manager wants someone to be part of their training, they're going to look at you and you're killing everyone with the fitness, with the quality, the technical. Be there. and then you dominate some first team players, and then before you know it, you're a part of that fixture that you can't ever be let go of. Don't start slow. Don't start going there undercooked, because that's a hard thing to catch up on.
I'll tell you, mate, honestly, it's been a phenomenal show.
Absolutely banging, mate.
Yeah.
What a show.
Yeah.
What a show,
yeah.
mate.
We've loved it. We have loved it. H, for anyone who wants to follow you in a bit more detail, we must say Harry was on last season during for the Nuno game against Wolves. I know lots have forgotten this now. We're hoping H will join us hopefully for this upcoming season for games to come. Been wonderful having him on to talk a bit more in terms of his playing field, what he does, his day job. It's been superb. H, where can people find you across the socials and the wonderful work you do?
Well, you guys asked me this before, and I didn't know what my Twitter was, so I made sure to put it in the little thing there. So just it's at HB_head coach. So yeah, at HB_head coach. If people want to follow me and send me abuse, go for it. Is what it is. But yeah, that's where people can find me if they want to.
I'm sure, mate, you'll be getting a lot of love. It's like I say, there's been so much love on this show for you tonight. Honestly, it's been incredible. Like I say, people already saying they're already following you up, they're already subscribing to it. So, H, we look forward to having you back on. For a non-Nuno game with Conte still here and Spurs winning. Lee, been a great show, right? Been superb.
It's been brilliant. I mean, I could talk to Harry all night. You know, I talk for England anyway, but I just find it fascinating, the insights that you get. I'm absolutely buzzing, like loads of the comments that we're seeing, the listeners when you're listening back on this when it's live later. Absolutely buzzing for the new season, and it just makes me excited that they're going to be worked really hard. It makes me excited that they're going to be looking at playbooks and analysis, doing the analysis on how can they improve. It makes me excited that they've got their own ship-shape plans, and practicing certain things they need to get better at as well. And I can't wait. Under Conte, generally, I think the world is our oyster. And one of the things that stuck out for me, Harry, that you said earlier, is that if you could manage, if you're a leader and you've got the man management skills, and you can achieve anything. And with the ability that we've got 2 golden boot winners season on season in our squad. Like, let's start waking up and smelling the coffee here. We just signed Richarlison for 60 million quid. We've got Kulusevski who's about to explode. They've got Romero is just absolutely outstanding. Ben Davies tearing up 9 out of 10s every week. And then you've got the man at the helm that is going to have a full pre-season with these boys going into the season. He's only been with us for 202 days, as the app's going to suggest. What he can do in the next season is going to be brilliant, and I cannot wait. Come you Spurs, loving it.
Oh man, what a point to leave it on. Well, listen, from the wonderful Lee McQueen, from the superb Harry Brooks, as I say, make sure you catch Harry on social media. Harry will be back with us for hopefully, like I say, the upcoming season for games to come. And like I say, as always, guys, on Last Word On Spurs, we'll be carding you for every single pre-season game. We'll be here with you up until the start, and then we already will get getting this train moving. So from all of us here, please keep safe, keep well. From Lee, Harry, myself, as always, guys, keep safe.